So my name's Karen Stearne. I work for Heart Niagara. We're here in the Niagara region, and I have been with Heart Niagara for just over 25 years. One of the questions we get a lot, certainly working with people, is around healthy eating, and as we age, the kinds of things we need to do. But one of the things that really happened in the last 2 years that none of us planned on was COVID. And of course, with COVID, everyone seemed to have got reacquainted with food in a new way. Some of us were eating more because we were bored. Others were looking at what was in the cupboard for the first time because actually we didn't have as much access to food readily. So we had to come up with some new recipes. There was definitely financial challenges, and that was across the board because certainly there was some question about access to food, how to get it, and then the cost of everything raising. But the good news was there was a closer contact with a few people in your life because you were eating with other people often or you were sharing food. And I think because we didn't have much to do, people were reading cookbooks, they were looking at cooking shows. So they started to look at food for the first time in a new way. So for some of us, we were eating better, and some of us, we were gaining a few pounds. So I don't know which group. I think all of us were in both groups at some point. Today, I'm really going to focus, though, on one of the things that changed, and that was because we were becoming less active, because people were not going out. And although you think, oh, I wasn't that active before anyway, but you actually walked down the stairs. And if you did your stairs in your building or in your house a few times a day, you were more active. But now you're not leaving the house, you're not as more active. So then more and more, a healthy diet becomes critical. And obviously, one of the critical things around a healthy diet is getting sure that you have good protein in your diet. Protein is what feeds the muscles in your body. They're considered the building blocks. So that's an issue that must happen. They also, those amino acids that are in protein, they help to build and repair your bones, and they make hormones and enzymes. So it is an essential source of food that you must have. And I know that one of the challenges as people age is the fact that they don't want to eat as much. And everyone has this idea that protein only comes from meat products, which is not true. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we know that too little protein changes everything, and it actually even impacts your dentures or your teeth. All of these things happen because the muscles in your body have less, and protein is what feeds it. So what we need is to figure out how to reduce any wasting or shrinkage of our muscles. And also, for some people, you might see friends or family members who their feet or their ankles start to swell more. And that is called edema. And that also is due to a lack of protein in your diet. Because edema is really that inability to deliver oxygen to all the cells. And that could be iron, which there's a couple of ways to get iron and protein together. And obviously in children, if they don't have a lack of protein, it's definitely going to stunt their growth. From around 50 years of age, humans begin to gradually lose their muscle mass. The good news is we're getting it past 50. The bad news is we will lose muscle. And there's something out there called sarcopenia, which a number of us will have, and that you'll find out that it's about loss of muscle, and you start to bend a little bit hard, like it's not as easy to do things, and you might have some more chronic illness in your life, and that inactivity. So it's a horse in the cart here. So you feel not so great, so you do less active things. The more less activity you have, then the worse you feel, and then you don't feel like eating. So this is this vicious circle that we must address, and protein is the number one way to do that. I bet you people will be surprised to know that you need about 60 to 80 grams of protein per day. So you can look now at, there's lots of supplements out there that make it easier. There's some yogurts on the market that have 15 grams of protein in them. There's some good protein building drinks. I must say with the drinks, please watch what you're doing with the sugar, because you may be doing well with the protein, but then you've added way too much sugar into your diet. So we're going to focus on really the proteins today that you can eat and some easy ways to add them into your diet. And I bet you, because this is something I didn't know, do you know, like, let's say you go for your 15-minute walk and you've done your exercise, whether it's a small exercise program, whether you do yoga, whether you walk your stairs, whether you walk with a friend, or you walk the dog, or you go to a stretch class. After this is the best time for you to have more protein in your diet. So if you get into a habit of having a snack right after your workout or your walk, you'd be much smarter, because that will go really quickly into a way to improve your muscles, because you're giving that carbohydrate and that protein right back to your body right away. And so I'm thinking that it's not a big deal. It could be a glass of milk, it could be some cheese and crackers, it could be a yogurt, but stay focused on eating some kind of a snack after every exercise. It will improve and it will stimulate that muscle growth after you've been exercising. So anytime you do that, it does better for you. So I don't know if you know a lot about protein. And so what I thought I would talk about today is kind of some of the surprising things around protein. So fish, of course, is always an outstanding food. One, the protein is very high in fish, but the second thing is that it has that omega-3, which also is lotion for your joints. So the better you're getting those omega-3 fatty acids into your system, the better it is. So and thinking about this, you think, well, what kind of fish am I supposed to eat? Well, the colder the water that the fish is coming from, the higher the fat content will be that you need that omega-3. And it is full of protein. So take a tuna fish. 6 ounces of tuna fish actually gives you 50 grams of protein. And then, of course, salmon is way up there. You get about 25 to 30 grams of that piece. And salmon and tuna are, well, one, you can just have a can of tuna. Make sure that you're getting the one without the oil. Drain it. And there's lots of great ways to add tuna to your diet. I mean, just making a tuna salad, which, you know, sure, a little bit of mayonnaise never hurt anyone. Salt and pepper, you can add a little celery or something, but you can use that to scoop a cracker, or you can make a sandwich. And certainly there's lots of warm, hot meals. You make noodles and then put in the tuna, because often salmon is a little bit more pricey. But I'll tell you, you still only need 4 ounces. So when we look at a piece of salmon in the store and it seems so expensive, look at, you could get 7 servings maybe out of a whole fillet. So there's a couple of ways to use that salmon. So when we talk about cooking it, you could cook your whole piece of salmon and then cut it into portions and freeze it cooked. Or you could cut it yourself and put it in the freezer before it's cooked, because really, I think all of us know that salmon only takes about 7 minutes to cook. It's not one of those fish that you want to overcook. But there's some easy ways to make delicious recipes with a little lemon and butter. If you want to get excited, you can always add a little soy sauce or chili. There's lots of ways that you can cook those pieces of fish, and they can be added to a salad at lunchtime. And by the way, if you have that salmon salad or tuna salad at lunch and it's sitting on a bed of spinach, well, right away, you've just added all that iron you need, because spinach is one of the best sources of iron. And certainly as we age, iron for a lot of us is one of the things that is deficient in our daily life. So thinking about that. Of course, the number 2 item that you can do to add to your diet is using tofu. So many people, when I start doing cooking classes and teaching, I always say the number 1 rule when you're using these products is throw away the package. People eat with their eyes. Right away, they're going to tell you, I don't eat tofu. I don't like tofu. Tofu's not for me. But tofu is much like a piece of eggplant. It'll take on any flavor that you want. So it really is about the marinade you use with your tofu. You can marinate your tofu before and put it in the oven, and you'll have a nice crispy, it'll be crispy on the outside, soft on the inside if you slice it. You can fry it and add it, fry it into your stir fry. And so it works everywhere. But let me just tell you, like a cup of tofu, which is not very much, is 43 grams of protein, and that is a very inexpensive solution to add to your food. So some people get, like I use silken tofu instead of eggs. So you can have a silken tofu scramble, which is quite easy to do. So you it's when you get the silken, which is the soft tofu, you just scramble it in your frying pan with a little bit of, whatever, your onion or however you make your scramble, whatever it is. It's delicious, salt and pepper, and there you are. You've got it. You've added that to your diet. Beef is still good. It's a very good source of protein. However, for some of us, as we've aged, it's harder and harder to, one, digest the protein or the beef. So sometimes people find that a really high-end lean ground beef is even better than that steak, because you can make a lovely burger type, but it's really a Salisbury steak, which makes it easy to eat. And again, 6 ounces of high-end ground is 25 grams of protein. So as you can see, and for some people, I often hear, well, the hamburger is too big of a package and I'm not going to eat all that. What I do at my house is, if I can find a piece, I'll make 3 or 4 burgers at once, cook them all at once, and then I put the other 3 in the freezer. So they're all done. And then when I feel, this isn't a night when I want to do a lot of cooking, I can bring that burger out. It's thawed, and in no time at all, it's warmed up, and I can either have it as a burger, or I can, grind the beef and crumble the beef into a salad and have a taco salad. Well, you can always just add it into a soup if you've got a beef soup, or if you've got a soup going on, a rice soup or something that even is a can, you can throw that in, and you've now added all that protein to your diet. You've prepared ahead, and you are eating. Because one of the challenges for us as seniors is you're used to cooking for 4 people or 6 people or 8 people in your life, and all of a sudden you have an empty nest, and there maybe just is you now. You are the most important person in your life, and you need to know that, and you need to believe in you. So make sure you cook dinner, because I've heard more people, as they age, they lose muscle mass, and then they're more tired. It's harder to get up the stairs. And yes, our joints do get tired also, but it is harder when you don't use it, you lose it. But you need food and you need protein to keep that muscle mass. I can't even say enough about it. Turkey breast is another really good protein. So thinking about turkey breast, nowadays you can get a boneless breast, very inexpensive. And yes, it does look expensive at the store when you're buying it, but it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to cook it nicely. You can slice that into about 3 meals, again, 3 or 4 meals, or share it with a friend. There's also a lot of people that do that. They share that's a good time to invite a friend over, and then you have 2 extra meals. I always take one, the smallest kind of crumbly part of the turkey breast, and I'll again add that to a little soup, so I have that another night. Sardines remain one of those things, and I don't know about any of you, but I certainly remember my dad eating sardines when I was a young girl. And sardines still have they have 20 grams of protein, and if it's a good memory for you, then a can of sardines and saltine crackers are a nice snack in the afternoon. Because the other thing as we age is thinking about eating more often, but not eating a lot. I don't know if you're like some people, and probably me included, is you sit down and you have this big meal in front of you and you just don't feel like trying all those things. But boy, it would have been nice at 2:30 to have a little snack. And if you can plan your day so that you eat within it, I still say you have a nice lunch and you have a nice dinner, and it just may be a smaller portion, but you're worth it. Go to the table, sit down with a knife and a fork and a plate and a candle if you like, because what you need to do is enjoy your food and know how important it is to your well-being. Another way is really using chickpeas. And I don't know if you cook with chickpeas, but I'll tell you, chickpeas are one of those things that a can of chickpeas, and really, yes, you can cook them from scratch. And if you have a slow cooker, it's an easy way to work. But nowadays, with the price of canned beans, why would you go to all that extra work when you could just open a can of beans, drain them? And I always say to people, remember to wash your beans. And the same, I would say, if you're using a canned vegetable, because the reason why things look so bright is because they add salt and they add a preservative lots of times. So make sure you rinse all the part off the vegetables. Now with the chickpeas, you know, it has that kind of, it's almost like a sliminess to it. That's called aquafaba. And actually, believe it or not, if you put that aside, you could actually take your beaters and blend that, because that is a really good egg substitute. So what's a good idea is if you're having guests and you want to make a chickpea salad, which is very easy to make on the side, then pour off that aquafaba, and with a cake mix, you could add that aquafaba instead of 3 eggs. And I'm telling you, your cake will turn out delicious. There's some real quick hacks, as they call them now, to getting more protein in your diet, using everything that you're purchasing, because you also want to save money. And I think that the financial solutions are to look at how to use everything. And certainly chickpeas are delicious. There's a way to add them to your salad, to a soup, to a chili, to a ground meat. And then, of course, that aquafaba is a good egg replacement if you're baking muffins or you're making a cake. Egg whites now come in such an easy carton if you're trying to increase the protein in your diet, but you're worried about cholesterol. So the cholesterol from eggs is in the yolk, the yellow part. Egg whites are full of protein. You can actually get 11 grams of probably, when you make an egg omelet, you probably get 22 grams of protein. So it's really a good solution for you. You'll see now, as I mentioned earlier, that yogurts are always a good add-on in your fridge. And I know when you're at the store, sometimes it seems that it's a little bit expensive. But if you could, get the yogurt that's got the fortified protein in it, and over the week you have it a few extra times. First of all, it is a good, delicious snack. You can have a smaller portion, certainly after you've been active, but also you're going to get 15 grams of, with 3 ounces, you'll get an extra 15 grams of protein anytime. One of the other, any kind of soy milk, any of those products really work. So I'm going to talk about one recipe right now that I think people will go, oh, well, so you make your spaghetti sauce, and often people buy the sauce. So I'm not saying make it from scratch, but you're more than welcome to. But if you didn't, you'd make your pasta, and then you would buy a can of lentils. So you'll see they have green lentils. So if you bought a can of lentils, drain your lentils and put them into your spaghetti sauce. First of all, I can tell you within a couple of minutes, people will just say it's ground beef. They won't know the difference. So again, don't always tell people everything until they learn. So now you've got your jar of tomato sauce, you've got a can of lentils, you've rinsed your lentils off, and you could put about a half a cup of vegetable stock in that to thin it out a bit. So you want your sauce to thin out. Or if you're real adventurous and it's a special night, you could put a half a cup of red wine in there, or white wine, or whatever you've got. If you have some wine in your house that you're not using, it's a good way to add it. And just salt and pepper to taste. Then you're going to make your pasta like you always do in boiling water. You're going to drain your water off it into your colander. Then you're going to put your pot back on the stove, and I want you to put the sauce into that bigger pot that you used to make your pasta. Put that in the bottom of it, and then you're going to add the pasta back into the pot. So the best way to make pasta in a good way is actually cook it a little longer, and I'm only talking about a minute. Put it back into your pot so that your pasta is covered completely with your sauce in a beautiful way. And you know what? You just pour that out into your serving dishes, and there you've got a lovely pasta dinner that's high in protein, because of course you have the lentils. You can use other beans also, but certainly, or legumes is really the name. But lentils really give people the sense of that of a marinara sauce with beef in it, and it really is a good solution. One of the easiest desserts, well, I'm going to give you two desserts today. If you have a blender, now a blender is critical to these two desserts, because if you don't have a blender, it's a lot of extra mashing. But you would just take, again, one package of the silken tofu, extra firm or silken. You can use both, a combination. So it's interesting. If you make this with an extra firm one, it's going to be crumbly. If you use silken, your berry mousse will be smooth, which really is the right way. So I would say let's just go with one package of silken tofu. Then you're going to take 2.5 cups of the berries that you see in the grocery store in the frozen section. You know, and often, especially off season, it is really hard to continue to eat fruit and vegetables at the prices these days. So look in the freezer section to see what they've got and wait for the sale. And often the mixed berries, you can find a real good bargain on them sometimes. They're in your freezer, and then you just scoop a couple of cups out. What you're going to do, again, if you want to get a little crazy and it's a Saturday night party, if you have any liqueur, you could add a little tablespoon in. It just, gives it a bit of a kick. And then I want you to blend all of that together in your blender or your food processor, and it will be quite smooth. You're going to spoon that into 4 mousse dishes or pudding dishes, and you refrigerate it until you chill it. And there again, you've just added another 7 grams of protein for each dessert. And your whole cost of that dessert for 4 people is about $3. So I continue to look at, if you're thinking about having guests in for dinner, you want to make a lovely dinner for people, but you also want to stay smart with your money. So using silken tofu is a great way to add protein. It reduces your cost. Those frozen berries do a good job. And you could add a little sugar if you want, or agave. And I don't know if anybody uses agave, but agave is a sugar replacement. It is a little bit more money but it's halfway between sugar and honey. So looking at how to make that difference. So oatmeal muffins. I don't know if any of you have seen it. Quaker here is what I use. So they have a muffin mix you can get. Usually it's around $3.99 to $4, and it makes 16 muffins. What I do is I'll buy that, and I'll buy 1 tub again of the silken tofu, and I'll add that to my muffin mix and a cup of water. And then I'll put either the raisins or whatever I'm going to put in my muffins and make them. And so now I've made 16 muffins, and I've spent $5.50 for 16 muffins instead of 6. And you're again adding more protein to your diet because you're using the silken tofu. And that's really the focus, figuring out how to be economical, still have all the things in life you want, certainly not do a lot more dishes, because now there's cool ways. Now you can get muffin wrappers that you don't even have to have the old muffin tins, but I think all of us have those in our stoves. So it's a good way to do it. Again, you're reducing the fat. If you look at that recipe for the muffins, we didn't add any oil, which is incredibly good idea, because that reduces the fat in your diet, which is not the good fat. The omega fats come from the fish. And I don't know if you knew this, you could actually buy a cake mix, whether it's Betty Crocker or I don't know, whoever else, Duncan Hines, whoever makes a cake mix. You can actually take a cake mix and use a can of soda instead of water and eggs. And if you take that cake mix and make your batter, mixing in that can of soda, you can actually make a cake, and that's all you need. So now you've used a can of soda for 22 cents. And if you can get a cake mix on sale, it's $1.25. So for $1.50, you've got the cake made. And then looking just for frosting, or, sometimes you could, I've done it where I've made it with a lemon cake mix and turned it into more like a lemon loaf, and just used a little bit of a glaze on the top. But again, you want to eat something that's good. You want to have some fun. You don't want to do a lot of dishes, and you don't want it to be costly. But if you wanted to make a big fancy cake for 12 people, you could take 2 cake mixes, 2 cans of soda, and a can of icing. And for $5, you could feed 8 people cake. So you'd still be, again, around like 65 to 75 cents per serving. I don't know if any of you grew up with beans and greens. Well, I'll tell you that's a big thing in our house and has always been for generations. So I always look on the reduce rack, because if I'm going to turn it into a cook down anyway, why wouldn't I go to the reduce rack first and look for the rapini, the kale, the collard greens, get those, whatever's happening. But I see now in the store, they make those packages that are all ready to mix. So get it already done. Don't make as much mess for yourself. It's already chopped. You're going to add some garlic. I often keep vegetable cubes in my house for everything because it just adds to that. You're going to have, again, if you could find black beans again are high in protein. They're good fiber. You really need that fiber in your diet. And as we age, we need more of it. So you're going to take 2 cups of water. You're going to put all your rapini, your collard greens in there, your garlic and your vegetable cube. And then you're going to let that cook down for only 10 minutes max. That's being generous. And then you're going to drain you're going to drain your black beans or your red beans, whatever you've decided to use. And again, I would wash them and rinse off the aquafaba, the kind of gluey piece. And if you look in the grocery store, you're going to find a product that's called smoked tofu. So if you remember how forever ago, you would always make your greens and beans with pork hocks or something else, and they would be a lot more work. This smoked tofu, all you do is shred it and grate it and drop it in. And I'm telling you, you're going to get all that smoky flavor. You're not going to have the fat. You're going to increase your protein because the tofu is there. And that whole meal is ready in under 15 minutes. And then, of course, you could always make it with cornbread if you wanted to go further. So really, the bottom line is looking at that you're worth it. You're worth it in your diet. You're worth it in the things that you make. And protein is essential. And you can get it from meat. You can get it from your vegetables. You know, stir fries can be your best friend. And nowadays at the grocery store, they have the broccoli, they have the cauliflower, they have some of these combinations made. And yes, I know when you look at it, you think it's a little more expensive. But if we're all honest, we have more vegetables in our fridges that end up going in the garbage because we only ever eat half of it because it's too big of a portion. So it may be a bigger sale, but in the end, if you haven't eaten it, it's no bargain at all. So looking at lentils are also, lentils are always a good option. Any kinds of legumes will add your fiber, will add the protein. Of course, fish in your diet, you should try to eat fish at least 3 times a week. So I wanted to just give you a few ideas